Welcome to this Dynamic Spike session on EntityUtil. In this session, I'll cover an introduction to EntityUtil and why it was built. I'll then go over the prerequisites, showing how you can validate the prerequisites for yourself. Next, we'll look at how you can use EntityUtil to generate the entity database schemas from a Tier 2 environment, allowing for a customer to capture the applicable customizations. Finally, there is a link to the EntityUtil on GitHub. This session is not intended to show you how to set up and configure Synapse Link or Fabric Link. For that, there are other recordings available. So first, Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations uses entities for many data-related tasks. These entities can become complex, with many joins and embedded views. Thus, they are not supported by Synapse Link. However, our customers would like to leverage these entities in their data warehouses. To help enable this, the Fast Track team has created an open source PowerShell script that we call EntityUtil. One scenario where we see adoption of EntityUtil is transitioning from BYOD. BYOD exports data in the materialized entity shape. However, Synapse Link exports data as tables or simple entities. EntityUtil allows customers to identify the complex entities that they want to export. The tool will then read and document the entity structure in a JSON file and use that information to create views within the target environments. These views represent the complex entities so that your customers can reference the view instead of the table, thus minimizing the impact to downstream systems. It is important to note that appropriate performance testing should be conducted to ensure the complex entities perform as required. If not, you should look to simplify the views and optimize them. These views can be created in Fabric, Azure SQL database, a serverless database, or even in the replica database created by Synapse Link. If they are not, however, in the case of creating them in, for example, the replica database, they should be created in a different database schema than the DBO database schema. For the demo, we are assuming that you have already created your Synapse Link profile that is leveraging a Spark pool within an Azure Synapse workspace to convert the exported files to Delta Parquet, and that you have already started exporting these tables and getting them converted into that Delta Parquet format. In this first demo, we're going to take a look at how you can quickly validate the prerequisites. So we're first going to look at the prerequisites. The first is to look at the Synapse Link profiles. We have configured a number of them, one of which, in this example, is already set up to convert the CSV files into Delta Parquet format. We have already selected a set of tables and have started exporting them. And we have already set up and configured the Azure Synapse Analytics workspace. And here we can see that the replica database is available and tables have been exported and converted into Delta Parquet for us to start leveraging. Now, we will look at how you can generate a file containing the database schema information for the entities that need to be created. This is a relevant step irrespective of the target where you want to create the entities, and thus it is being shown here. In this part of the demo, we're going to look at how to use EntityUtil. EntityUtil is an open source toolkit that is available on GitHub, and we'll add a link to this site at the end of this presentation. Now, once you've downloaded it, the first component is going to be to edit the config.json file so that you can generate the dependencies JSON file. So let's take a look at that now. So here's the config file, and the important bits for this first step, which is to generate the dependencies.json file, is to specify the list of entities that you want to generate in your serverless database. Next, we're looking at the sandbox server name. So this is a tier 2 plus environment, which has your customizations in it so that you can generate the database schema or get the database schema for these particular entities that you've listed. And of course, you need to specify the database name and then the JIT access ID that you're given and the password that is generated via LCS when you request JIT access. Once you've set that up and configured it and ensured that you have access to it, you can then run EntityUtil. And you are presented with 5 options. The one we're looking at now is option 1, which is to create the JSON file. So it's enter 1. And this is now connecting to that tier 2 plus environment and executing a query in order to generate that file. Once that file is generated, we can have a look at it. And here in the dependencies.json file, you'll notice that it specifies all of the tables that are required to create the views, as well as the dependent depth, or whether or not these tables are part of the inherited views, which may be part of other embedded views. So the depth, the order in which these need to be created. And so you can see that this particular view has a depth of 3, which means it needs to be created before being leveraged by other entities that are in the list. And of course, you have the definition being the TSQL that needs to be run in order to generate the particular view or entity. And then this goes all the way down to the final or the highest depth, which is the last set of views that need to be created that represent the entities that you're trying to create. You are able to find the EntityUtil PowerShell script on GitHub using the following link. Thank you for your time today.